In September of the year 1875, roughly 55 miles northwest of Cedar City, Utah, two prospectors were digging into the site of Indian Grave Peak in the San Francisco Mountains. Their names were James Ryan and Samuel Hawks. These prospectors from the San Francisco mining district were in search of gold, silver, and copper. While they were investigating a large rock outcropping in search of copper, they found a rich silver ore body. They immediately staked a claim, but ultimately sold it out of suspicion that the ore body itself was small. The claim sold for $25,000, giving them a quick profit. Much to their dismay, however, they would find that the ore body, when extracted, would total approximately 530 tons of silver ore. This silver would serve as the genesis of the largest mining boomtown in Utah, and would bolster the chaotic nature of the wild American West. This is the story of Frisco, the most lawless mining town in Utah. The Frisco mine's new owners started working the outcrop and digging out the ore body, which appeared to be substantially larger than originally suspected and as rich as 70% silver content. This was the richest known silver ore in America at the time. This was also the beginning of the town of Frisco. Frisco was named for the San Francisco Mountains where the settlement and silver were situated. A second mine opened near Frisco called the Horn Silver Mine. The opening of this mine resulted in more workers moving to Frisco in search of a living. The Frisco Mining and Smelting Company then expanded its operation beyond the original mine. They built 2 smelters and added 5 beehive charcoal kilns to generate fuel for them. These smelters would support several other mines in the area. From the original silver mine would spring 8 more silver mines. The Horn Silver Mine remained the largest in operation among them. The town of Frisco was growing, but there wasn't a steady enough supply of water to support it. There were food shortages, supply shortages, and logistics planning was difficult due to the remote nature of the town. The railroad terminated 14 miles away in Milford, so any other materials would need to be hauled in by mule trains operated by experienced mule skinners. This was not cheap, and the mining companies in Frisco at the time didn't have the financial muscle to continue paying for this. They needed more money for operations. This is where a man by the name of J. Cook entered the picture. Cook had been the man to propose the idea of selling federal bonds to pay for the American Civil War. Directly as a result of this proposition, Cook had established himself as the most successful banker in the United States and the wealthiest man in America. Unfortunately, Cook's fortune would be short-lived. His entire fortune would appear, and then disappear, between the years 1870 and 1873. His home would be foreclosed upon by creditors, and he would be completely broke. He had been actively attempting to construct the Northern Pacific Railroad when the Franco-Prussian War and the Panic of 1873 had killed his bond sales promotions. Cook needed another source of income, and he needed it fast. Cook was introduced to the idea of mining ventures by an unknown colleague who had presented him the idea of purchasing the Horn Silver Mine. Cook took a huge risk and proposed to the Horn Silver Company that they should bond out their mine to him, despite him not having a dime to his name to pay for it. In exchange, he would provide the much-needed railways and logistics to supply Frisco with the resources and water it so desperately needed. Cook was an intelligent man. Many lauded him as a financial genius. Cook was able to convince the mine owners themselves, as well as the Mormon Church, oddly enough, to front 25% of the funds required to complete this venture. Cook also got another Wall Street moneyman involved by the name of Jay Gould. With these funds secured, and the growth of Frisco guaranteed, the mines would continue growing and producing substantial quantities of silver. Thanks to this growth, Cook would sell his bonded shares of the mine for over $1 million. Frisco was becoming a proper boom town. The Horn Silver Mine was named the richest silver mine in the world now being worked in 1879, according to the U.S. Annual Mining Review and Stock Ledger. As a result of this explosion of progress, the Utah Southern Railroad extension made its way from its original terminus in Milford, 14 miles southeast, to Frisco proper. This resulted in cheaper transportation costs for the mines in Frisco, which substantially improved profitability for the mines. The town grew as the mines grew. At its peak, the town hosted 23 saloons, several restaurants, a few churches, one schoolhouse, several stores and shops, and many other amenities to satisfy the needs and desires of Frisco's residents. The prosperity in Frisco attracted all manner of people, but all was not well among the population. Because of the sheer number of mining operations in the Frisco area, there would be a large concentration of miners and their families living in town. At one point, the town had a significant population of 6,000 people. With population comes problems among the populace. Frisco's streets were completely lined with saloons, brothels, and gambling dens. Violence and murders were a daily occurrence in Frisco. Finding a body or two in the streets was simply a Tuesday. Frisco was described as Dodge City, Tombstone, Sodom, and Gomorrah all rolled into one. The town was lawless, to say the least. Mine officials ended up contracting a roaming wagon whose sole purpose was to collect the bodies of victims murdered in town and take them to be buried at Boot Hill Cemetery or Frisco Cemetery. The city hired a lawman from Pioche, Nevada to get Frisco under control. This lawman had a zero-tolerance policy for the type of hooliganism that presented itself in the underbelly of Frisco. He gave the participants two options: leave or die. Initially, these outlaws would call the sheriff's bluff. It wasn't until the new sheriff in town had killed 6 outlaws in one night that they started taking his threats a little more seriously. This lawman is only known as Sheriff Pearson. We have no real record to reference for him, but he's described as a large man who spoke softly to the residents of Frisco and had a deep belief in justice and the rule of law. His salary was partly paid out by the Horn Mining Company. He was also paid a $10 bounty for each problem solved in town. Pearson's cleanup of Frisco had been so effective that it actually caused a noticeable downturn in Frisco's economy, to which mine executives and miners alike grumbled and cursed. Because of Pearson's cleanup efforts, many residents were afraid to show their faces in the local saloons and brothels for fear of becoming the sheriff's next bounty. In order to slow the gradual thinning of Frisco's population, mine authorities raised the bounty paid to the sheriff and exercised greater discretion in paying out these bounties. In turn, this slowed the rate at which outlaws were dispatched and afforded many of them the opportunity to become changed men or leave town. The end result was a much milder, safer Frisco. One critical component of hard rock mining is appropriate shoring and support for the various tunnels, stopes, adits, and declines that are blasted into the rock. Without appropriate support, faults and fractures will begin to form in the rock. These gaps then allow the rock to begin shifting, sliding, and ultimately causes cave-ins. On the 12th of February in 1885, the morning shift reported to the Horn Silver Mine in Frisco to take over for the evening shift. A mine foreman stood at the threshold of the manway of the mine and ordered the day shift workers to wait. There had been shifts and tremors felt all morning in the mine, and it wasn't safe for them to proceed. The night crew began slowly spilling out of the manway of the mine, and within a few minutes of the last man exiting, a large tremor was felt. The ground shook so violently that residents of Milford, 14 miles away, reported feeling the ground shift beneath their feet. A few folks allegedly reported that their windows had shattered. That quake had been a massive cave-in. In February, the peaks in that region are generally buried in snow, but it gets warm enough each day to cause some of that snow to begin to melt and run off. Much of that runoff water had percolated through the soil of the mountain and into cracks in the rock. The collapse itself was blamed on improper timbering and shoring of tunnels in the mine, combined with the weight of the snow on the mountain and the groundwater lubricating the cracked and falling rocks. There were no reported injuries or deaths as a result of this collapse, but this collapse was the beginning of the end for the mines in Frisco. Since the beginning of Frisco in the 1870s, over $60 million in gold, silver, copper, lead, and zinc had been transported from the mines by mule train and the Utah Southern Railroad. The mine collapse stalled the mine for a year, but it did begin producing again. The Horn Silver Mine had produced over 196 million tons of lead, nearly 1.3 million tons of silver, 3/4 of a ton of gold, 4,500 tons of copper, and 23,000 tons of zinc. Unfortunately, it would never produce on the same scale as it had in the past. By the beginning of 1900, the population of Frisco had declined to a mere 500 people. By 1912, the town's population had fallen further to 150. As the 1920s rolled in, Frisco rolled out, becoming a proper ghost town. Not a soul remained. Little of Frisco, as it was, remains today. The charcoal kilns were placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1982. In the early 2000s, another mining operation had purchased the claims in Frisco and began reworking the mines in hopes of recovering the large ore body of silver that remained behind after the mine caved in. The only areas that are easily accessible to the public are the Frisco Cemetery and the charcoal kilns. There are other remains in Frisco, however. Those remains include head frames with man lifts still attached and their engine houses. Several mine openings remain unsealed, beckoning the curious inside. Foundations of homes and other buildings sit derelict. Both the Frisco Cemetery and the Boot Hill Cemetery remain in place for the public to visit and pay respects as they see fit. Foundations of reduction mills and warehouses rest quietly where they once roared with machinery and life. Many other traces of the boomtown that once was lie quietly decaying to the elements. The mining claim is currently owned and worked by Horn Silver Mines Incorporated. This company actively clears collapses and drills cores in the mine for future mining operations. There are rumors that the mines will be reworked and the remainder of the rich silver ore body will be extracted. Only time will tell. For now, Frisco waits in quiet anticipation of the mine's revival or its own return to dust. I have a full, uncut exploration of the Frisco townsite available to channel founders. If you enjoy the content I produce, please consider becoming a channel founder. You'll be granted exclusive access to certain videos and certain posts. You'll get early access to public videos, receive a founder's badge next to your name in the comments section, and enjoy other perks and rewards. Any support helps this channel grow and helps me continue producing these videos. If you liked this video, check out the other videos on my Ghost Towns and Abandoned Places playlist. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. For now, my name is Mike. See you in the next one.